Do you ever find yourself longing for a deeper, more meaningful connections in your relationships? Are you tired of surface level interactions that leave you feeling disconnected and unfulfilled? What if I told you there's a secret sauce to boosting the value of your relationships, whether they're romantic, platonic, or professional? Welcome to the Hearts of Men podcast, where we'll focus this discussion on the secret sauce of boosting relationship value, where we dive deep into the art of authentic connection and emotional liberation. In a world filled with distractions and superficiality, many of us crave genuine human connection. We yearn for relationships that nourish our soul and allow us to be our authentic selves. But all too often, we find ourselves stuck in patterns of communication that lack depth and understanding, leaving us feeling isolated and misunderstood. But fear not, because in this conversation, we're going to unlock the secret to foster deeper connections and enhancing the value of your relationships. From the power of authentic communication to the strength found in vulnerability, we'll explore actionable strategies that will transform the way that you relate to others. So, if you're ready to embark on a journey toward authenticity, emotional liberation, and deeper connections, then grab a seat and join us for an insightful exploration into the secret sauce of meaningful relationships. You won't want to miss out on this transformative conversation. And as always, for our viewers, we offer a free download, which is a self reflective guide, because I believe your first phase of correction is always self. Now, as we start to get into this conversation, I'm smiling already because I'm just excited just to hear what everybody's got to say. And this question is not just for the people that's on the panel. I want to hear what everybody in the chat has to say as well, right? And starting us off again, everybody here, we are subject matter experts of our own perspectives. We don't claim to know everything, but the things that we do know, we believe it, and we don't mind sharing it because we believe it from our center. Okay, so I am curious, based upon your understanding. It could be one word, it can be a sentence, it could be a paragraph. I don't really care, but I want you guys to tell us, and I want everybody in the panel to tell in the chats to tell us as well. What do you think, in your humble opinion, is the secret sauce to having authentic, meaningful relationships?
Authentic, meaningful relate. I don't think it's just one thing, but I think I will start with communication, because when you listen more than you talk, you'll be able to hear what the person is saying. Sometimes we just listen to the words that they're saying. We're not looking at body language. We're not catching feelings in that moment. We're not trying to. We are sometimes we listen how we talk, not how the other person talks, and that can be a drastic change. So when you listen more than you talk, you take into account who you're dealing with, and whether it's like you said, a platonic or a romantic relationship, whatever that relationship is, you have to learn that person, who they say they are, who they think they are. Then you can build on that and grow with that. That's why I start.
Okay, I like it.
Um,
Um,
Go ahead.
I was just gonna make it simple for me. Of course, like Roland said, there's a lot, but so I'm just gonna throw out transparency and understanding. I stick with those two. Be
Okay.
real and understand, like kind of carry out on what Roland talking about listening. But as you listen, gain understanding of what the other person is expressing, or who they are as they're expressing who they are to you.
Well, I like Roland. I like the communication. However, I think in addition to just communication, effective communication. Um, but that's splitting hairs in a sense. But for me, I had wrote down compliance, but as I've been thinking about it more, I think my other word is I'm going to go with respect, right? So the reason why everybody on this panel has a relationship is because of respect. There's a certain amount me and Coach can have a conversation, me and Roller can have a conversation, especially if we're in person, not chatting behind keyboards, but if we're in person, the conversation is only going to go so far before somebody going to be ready to take it to a physical level. So I think that with men, especially, there's amount of respect that's already there, and I think that in any relationship, if you want to have a boost in your relationship, you got to have respect. You muted.
Tuame took mine. I was going to say honesty, but transparency is pretty much the same thing. Just be real and authentic. More people will respect you when you're real as opposed to when you try to be a people pleaser. Just be yourself, man. Watch House Party 3. Listen to
Okay.
Bernie Mac when he was talking to Kid.
Gotcha. I gotcha. Okay. I love all those answers, and we're going to start unpacking it. We're going to start unpacking this. And listen, if you're still typing your answer in the chats, by all means, continue as we start to go and start unpacking this entire conversation, because I like where you guys are starting, where you guys started from, and eventually I'm gonna ask a question in relation to all of those as we start to go. Yes, sir.
You know what? I was going to ask a question, but never mind. We'll just see how this conversation goes.
Okay.
Only because we're supposed to be talking as men, and we're supposed to be talking as men trying to build relationship value as men. And I really want to have this conversation without bringing women into it. There has to be a way to do it. Like there really does. But if that's where the conversation goes, that's where the conversation goes. But I think men need to fix men before we talk about that, if that makes any sense.
No, right. Absolutely. And I think what you're saying is not outside of the concept of what we're talking about. So men, we train men. That's the focus of training. Women train younger women. But by that same token, there still has to be cross the table conversation as well. So we start sharing the things that we're learning with one another so that we can not only have healthy male relationships, but we also have male and female healthy interactions as well. So absolutely. So as you guys are typing, we're going to get started again. Continue to put your information in the chats because I am curious as we start unpacking this. So first and foremost, why is it there? I want to start off. No, that's not supposed to be there. Give me a second. I want to start off with the concept of changing my frame because I am on reframing image and relationship. There we go. Okay. So I want to start off with authentic communication, going right after what Roland said, right? And so when it comes down to authentic communication, I want to understand from you guys, how can we, right? And Chris, you said it as men, how can we differentiate between genuine, authentic communication and superficial interactions in our relationships?
I think so. I'm gonna jump out there. I think with genuine communication, it feels, to me at least, it feels as a smooth, easy flow, right? Now, granted, when conversations start becoming crucial and difficult, you got to start thinking a little bit more about what you're saying. But just as men, like when we talk, right? I talk with Coach, I talk with Roland a lot, and when we have conversations, whether Coach get deep on us and philosophical and make us pull out the sources or not, it still flows. I understand what he's saying, because I know my brother. So when he speaks, I feel him, and I feel I'm picking up as what he's putting down, and I'm able to either respond or acknowledge I don't have a response because I think authenticity comes with relationship, right? It comes with knowing the other person. And so when you speak, when Roland say, "What up, Doe?" I'm not looking for a Doe out there in the woods. I know he's from Detroit, and I'm being funny, but so I know what he's saying because I know my brothers. Superficial, it's kind of hard for me to explain because once I feel like conversations get superficial or baseless or pointless, I kind of exit either physically or mentally from the conversation because I don't really like to delve into fruitless conversations for myself. But for me, authenticity, or authentic communication comes with the relationship that is built and allows us to flow from there.
I'm gonna go with not communication. I'm gonna go with consistency, right? So the amount of time or how often you speak to someone, right? The more we speak to someone, the more, when we meet somebody for the first time, like when I first met Chris or first met Roland or everybody on here, right? There was not necessarily walls been up, but you kind of had to get through a certain, like we had to interact on a consistent basis in order to really determine whether or not when I'm talking to coach, is he being authentic or is he with some superficial shenanigans? You know what I'm saying? And it takes, to talk to somebody on a consistent basis. If you only talk to somebody once or twice a year, I think sometimes it can be hard to authenticate, what I mean, the what the relationship really is, you know what I mean? Because if you only talk to somebody twice a year, you know what I mean? Like, really don't really understand everything about them, but when you talk more and more often, you, like I said, I think you can start weaving through the conversation and weaving through the relationship to kind of see if the relationship, like I said, really authentic or there's some superficial shenanigans going on in there. So like I said, I'm gonna go with consistency.
I like how you threw shenanigans on there because I was thinking, yeah. But I like where you went with that because I think when you have a relationship with a person, doesn't matter male, female, knowing that person comes over time because I can show you who I want you to see if you don't know me. I can just be jovial and whatever. But like if one of you guys were say we haven't talked, but I seen some posts and the post may be not like you. And then I call and you tell me, oh, it's all good, yada, yada, yada. But it's like, hold up, something ain't adding up. And then the more we talk, the more I see you have built up walls because I'm listening to what you're saying, but your actions aren't following through with that. So now I got to get through my pride and your pride at the same time and say, man, now talk to me, bro. What's going on? And if you don't want to talk like that, it's we got to have a relationship where we can let our guards down and say, man, yeah, I was going through a situation and this happened or that happened, or man, at this time, because if I just take you for face value, it's just like a text message. Like sometimes, I call because I say, dude, I got to hear your voice on this one. This ain't something I want to text you about. I got to hear what you're saying so I can feel your heart in this. It's not just something trivial. So I agree. I'm jumping on board with that.
Well, based off of what everybody said, this all involves trust. To me, genuine, authentic conversation is just that genuine, authentic conversation. I don't have to pull no punches. You don't have to pull no punches, and we can talk. To me, superficial anything is surface level, which means I don't really either A, I don't know you enough to get too deep, or B, I don't trust you enough to get too deep. So I'm gonna keep it surface. You don't need to know what's going on in my personal life. I'll say what's up with you. We can, you know what I'm saying? We can shoot the breeze, but I'm not trying to let you in my life like that. I don't know you. And to me, that's where it starts. Trust. I gotta trust you to have a genuine, authentic conversation because I might let some stuff go that ain't nobody really supposed to know. And I'm really trusting you to keep it between us. Why would I trust somebody superficial with that type of information? I gotta trust you.
And that's why I love what Unc said as well, that go along with what you just said, because with someone that I don't consistently have a conversation about my day-to-day life, when they start coming in the conversation asking about my family and ask about what I'm doing or whatever, I start smelling a little stuff going on, mess going on. I'm like, why are you asking me about? Because it's not a conversation we have. We don't kick it like that. It's hey, that's how you know when you're talking to a real NCO, when shenanigans come out so smoothly. But why are you asking me about my life? Now you just prying. You just in here to get into my business.
Or being nosy.
Or being nosy, yeah. So I do like the those 2 points came out
Just the
together. 'Cause
preparatory command.
Mhm.
But I think we're confusing authenticity with it being a seriousness to it. I think at all times I got to be authentic to who I am. You be authentic to who you are, and that lets me know if you're teeter-tottering on shooting me some stuff that's just like, okay, you flowering up this conversation. Something must be wrong because this ain't authentic. This ain't Chris. This ain't Gabby. So I know that the authentic me, I don't care what the situation is, I'm joking. Now, if I'm all serious and I'm worried and stressed out about something is actually going on with me. So, and you have to know that because I'm acting in an abnormal fashion, whether it's serious or non-serious, or the seriousness of the relationship, you should be able to tell that.
I like that you said that. I think that works. You might have alluded to it, but I think, the authenticity of a person versus the shenanigans. I think, the more consistent you talk to somebody and the better their relationship comes. Like you said, if me and you talk and it's always this way, this way, this way, and then all of a sudden I come at you some shenanigans, you like, look, bro, is something going on? Is something bothering you? You know what I mean? So I think that it can work in a positive way too, because sometimes somebody can show you some shenanigans, and it really can mean there's something that's bothering them or there's something that's going on. So I think it don't always have to be negative. I think sometimes it can be an alert for, or even a cry for help sometimes.
Okay, so the word of the night is shenanigans.
I was just about to
Got
say
it.
that. Yeah, it is shenanigans.
Got it.
Shenanigans.
That's the word of the night, ladies and gentlemen.
Why not?
Yeah, absolutely. I like what everybody is saying. I'm gonna start with Uncle Junior's point because that's where I'm gonna lay my hat at, and here's a reason why. I like the fact that you brought about consistency because there is this thing called get to know you. I can't assume that you're not being genuine and unauthentic in the first two or three conversations that we have. Like everybody has a mask. Everybody shows you what they want you to see initially. And I think until we get to the point that we have the level of consistency in communication, personal interaction, so forth and so on, if we don't have that, then it's very difficult to get beyond that. A person can hold the facade for a very long time, especially if they don't communicate with you on a consistent basis. So we got to get past the facade first. So the consistency thing, I agree with Uncle Junior, is definitely one of the most important pieces. After I get to the point of starting to understand who you are, how you communicate, the things you say, the things that kind of send you off tilt, the things that get you excited, whatever the case may be, then at that point, then I can start incorporating those other things. Right. The first thing that came to my mind as I was listening to you guys talk was, I don't know if you remember, we talked probably a couple of months back, where the concept of code switching came up. Right. So this person may get on the phone and they put on their business casual voice. I know what I'm talking about. They put on their business casual voice. You're like, man, come on, man. Like seriously. I mean, if I was on the other end of the phone, I don't even know who I'd be talking to if I heard that voice. So it's like, it's like I can't tell you who that person is or isn't until I have the consistency of being around that person on a consistent basis. And then moving forward, I need to be careful because if I'm not, I may be projecting my assumptions of who I think you are on you because that's the norm from where I came from. I might be comfortable with people just being unauthentic, telling false tales, and just one upping people. And that's another thing as well. So there's other things we got to look out for. Individuals who are consistently one up. They've done, I don't care what you did, they did it 10 times over. Right. Hey, I saved this little girl from a burning car, man. I saved the president last week. So it's just stuff like that. You got to be very cautious. You look for little key things, right? When you're having these conversations and you're, talking about certain things, then next thing you know, this person, oh yeah, I knew that. You know what I'm saying? So it's just certain things to where in the midst of conversation, little triggers, little keywords will kind of let you know that, well, this person is being genuine and authentic, or they're still putting up a facade. I can't figure them out. One minute they're like this, the next minute they're like this. You know, it's very difficult to maintain the consistency of a facade. So I'm loving everything that everybody is saying, but I'm gonna have to hang with Uncle Junior on this one because I agree the consistency would give me the opportunity to get to know the person, and when I get to know them, then I can determine their character, their mannerisms, and all kind of things that go along with that. Thoughts, feedback? Nope. Good to go. Yes. Do you think people show the authentic person, or does the true authentic shows up when least expected?
No.
Say more,
People
sir.
send the legendary Dante Nero from the Black Phillip Show used to say this all the time. A lot of people send the HR person instead of sending the dude from the mailroom, because the dude from the mailroom is really who they are, and the HR person is just a representative for the company. So they have to put on a facade so that way they don't embarrass the company. People are not authentic right out the gate.
I think
And to be real, I would say it's a societal thing. It's not just it's a societal thing, because the society that we live in, being that we're always involved and there's always something in our face, is difficult to trust. So I don't think people are authentic right out the gate, like not fully, because it's too difficult. People are too scared to get hurt.
I think it depends on one, who the person is, whether the person is comfortable within themselves, and because some people can't be who they are because they always got to put on the front. They always got to speak a certain way. I got to make sure I cross my I's and dot my T's, and instead of saying this and that, I say this and that. And sometimes you get that person depending on where you are. If it's just me and the fellas, I don't care if it's fellas I don't know. We meet at the bowling alley. I'm gonna be me. Now, if we are in a professional setting, I'm gonna be professional. That's not me changing up who I am. That's me adjusting to the environment. So I think that some people are, if you're comfortable with who you are and not worried about what other people think about you, then yeah, you show up as is. I'm as advertised. When I show up, I'm the same dude. When I and Dwayne know when I was, if you put me in formation, I'm the same guy. I'm not switching it up, trying to be overly military like that's me and I'm Mr. Patriotic. I'm this dude. I'm not from Bel Air. I'm from the North End. So the North End gonna come out, because if I gotta fake it, then that takes too much effort for me. And if it takes effort, I'm gonna mess it up, and then I'm gonna slip up, and then you know, I'm worried about your expectations. I'm not worried about that because, hey, like me or not, I'm me. I gotta live with this.
Don't let Roland fool y'all, man. He was Sergeant Slaughter in the Army. No, I'm joking. Go ahead. For those of you who knows who Sergeant Slaughter is.
I think for a small portion of people, they come out authentically who they are. I think in general, and I think for most people, they are a version of themselves or an unauthentic person of them until they reach a portion in their life or a point in their life where they know who they are. And I think once they get to that point where they know who they are, I think then the person that you meet is that authentic person. The 20-year-old version of me was not the authentic person. You know, I put on airs and there was fronts and I would act this certain way and yada, yada, yada. But now who I am for the most part at 48, when you meet me, and whether it be online, whether it be in person, you're going to get the same thing. And like Roland said, yeah, we have to adjust to fit the environment. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't expect anybody to be in, you know what I mean, sweatsuits and, you know what I mean, winter coats on the beach. You expect when they go to the beach that they dress the part. You know, just like if they go to a winter setting, you don't expect them to be in a bikini. You know what I'm saying? So I think that, like I said, I just think that for most people, you know what I mean, until we figure out who we are, you know what I mean? I think once we figure how we are, then that's the person we become, and that's our authentic self.
I I agree slightly in part. I don't disagree. I think I'll alter a little bit because I think for who I was at 20 years old, I think the essence of who I am has never changed. But it was the confidence of who I was, or yeah, I would say the confidence of who I was, right? Because we matured. I just perfected the essence of who I was with age, right? But I do remember being a young soldier, and I always had this thought because the way people treated me being from New York, that if I talk or act or spoke like I was from New York, people was going to see me as if somebody who thought he was a thug, somebody who's too loud and aggressive. You know, my first sergeant used to always tell me when I was a private, "Who you talking to?" So I had to practice, and I used to practice how to code switch, man, so I could stop getting smoked at work every day because I used to Roger first arm. Who you talking to? Roger first. Like I didn't know how to talk any different. Like, but I wasn't confident about if I can be who I was. So I think I don't. It wasn't the unsureness of who I was. I don't think I was confident exposing that to the public. Uh, Unless I was out and about with the boys, and something about to go down. We all is all BX Burrow, like he said, the North End come out, but I think whenever you just genuinely meeting somebody, right? And I'm not even going to talk about switching up from the workplace, but just genuinely meeting somebody, I don't think you get the full identity of who they are. I don't think you can completely lose the essence of who you are, but you're definitely putting on your representative when you meet someone, because not you, but most people, because you are just not sure how it's going to be received. You don't know if that person's going to like me or if that person's going to accept it or what, but when it goes back to what Coach said, when you have that consistency of communication with someone, it has to come out. You can't put that facade on forever.
So
I mean, my bad. I keep saying Coach.
That's right.
So are you the same person that I met last year on this show?
No,
I think that the person I met last year on this show is the same person that I know right now.
no.
Now we have consistent dialogue every single Friday. So the authentic son of Timothy, is that still the same person? I know you may have grown in your thoughts and different things like this, but were you the authentic self then or now, or were you the same person?
I think the essence of who I am, I don't think has ever changed. I may have matured in my beliefs. I may have matured in my vocabulary. I may have matured in my income, whatever that may be. But who I am has always been who I am. I believe. I just think,
and I agree.
that person just grows.
That's why I think that some people are inherently born knowing who they are and knowing who their authentic self is. Like I'm around kids every day. They know exactly who they are. They know exactly what they want in life. And I know a whole bunch of kids that ain't got a clue.
So if I may, if I can explain why I said no. Everybody on this panel, in the chats, everybody who's listening, everybody has experiences. If you have any experience at all in your life, those experiences have forced you to change. Like one of the worst concepts that we ever heard is that during the time of the pandemic, everybody kept saying, well, we can't wait to get back to normal. Newsflash, there was never going to be another normal. The next normal came after the experience. The same thing happens in your life as well. So as you progress in life, your experiences forced you to change, or you learn from your experiences and you make the change. If you don't learn from those experiences, trust me, that experience is going to come back around. It may look different, but it will come back around, and it's going to hit you like inflation. And trust me, you're going to change. So nobody is the same. I love you guys. I understand you guys say I'm pretty much the same. No, you're not. I promise you're not. You have encountered somebody that you've met 15, 20 years ago, or that you've known from the hood, or whatever the case may be. Not saying that you guys are from the hood. I'm just saying from the neighborhood, not the hood. That they say, man, you're different. You're a different person now. You know what I'm saying? Even if like you've like kind of put yourself in some type of forced growth pattern, when you encounter those people different, man, you ain't like you used to be, man. You different now. You talk different, you move different, you do all those things different. So nobody is the same. And if we're walking around with blinders on thinking I'm the same person I was in the army, you didn't know me when I was in the army, because I promise you I'm not the same person. I'm not the same person I was 5 years ago. So that's why I say that. And it's not to destroy anybody's perspective. Like, to your core, there's a lot of similarities, but you're not the same. Like, the hardest thing for a person to change is their core makeup. The stuff that you were taught growing up, those are the hardest things that we have that each one of us have to change.
And we all change like cars. Every 5 years, they change the model, the make and the model of the cars. So when you had a Cadillac, it looked like CTS or whatever it is. It looked a certain way in 2000. Then in 2005, they had a brand new body style, new trimming and all that other stuff. And that's how we are, because over time you grow. And some people, they stay stagnant and they have the expectations, and they put those expectations that they have on themselves because they haven't grown. They try to put that on you. So, like, man, you changed. You dang on straight, I changed. I changed because I've learned some things. I've bumped my head a few times. I've failed and I had successes, which allowed me to be the person that I am today. So I know that what I used to do, if I kept doing that, I wouldn't be where I am now or where I'm trying to go. And that's where we got to get our mindset that change is necessary and it's good.
But so I don't disagree with you, but I believe what y'all explained to me. I believe that is evolution, but not me not being who to army. I believe Roland has always been a funny dude, has always been a jokester. His jokes may be different, he might be cleaner, but it's still jokes. Just like when you talk about the car, it still has 4 wheels and an engine. It still takes you from point A to point B. Just it probably moves faster now. Probably has more space now. But the essence of the car is still. You get what I'm saying? So the car, there are changes to the car, but until that thing fly, it's still got 4 wheels and an engine. And that's how I look at it. Like I didn't know Coach in the Army, and I just don't. I believe he was Sergeant Slaughter for real in the uniform, but I believe when he sat down with soldiers one-on-one, just from the man I know today, I bet you he was a mentor. I bet you he was a teacher. Like, because to me, I feel like that's something that's embedded in him. Is just what he teaches, how he teaches, and how he articulates probably different. But that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the essence of the person. If that makes sense.
Absolutely. Great, Chris.
The reason why I said no is because of the question itself. The question said, do people do it? Individually, yeah, you might find some people that are all the way authentic in who they are, but on a general scale, nah, I don't see it. And that's because, like I said, people are afraid to trust. People are afraid of taking a loss. They're afraid that their true selves might cause them to lose people that they think love them. So on a general scale, and plus, like I said, with how everything on the out, all the superficial stuff influences people, it's difficult to find somebody. It's like finding a needle in a stack of needles, like finding somebody really authentic that really is open to trusting, if that makes any sense.
Yeah. We're going to press forward. Let's bring Miss Berlin question. I'm going to answer this one so we can move forward to the next question as well. Her question is, does authenticity come from being real about what they say or do? I would say yes, but I don't think it's in its entirety. I think for a person to be real, they have to speak from their core. I think a lot of times when people talk, and they talk from the perspective of what they think people want to hear, they share stories because those stories make them feel liked and things of that nature. They want to be liked. But when a person is being their authentic self, it's coming from their identity. It's not something that's made up. So that would be my response to that. And I think that's a great question, because we're talking about authenticity and some people probably don't even know what that means. So thank you for that. Let's move to the next section. empathy and understanding, because time is really starting to get away from us, and I didn't even realize that. So the question I have for you, gentlemen, and everybody else, is how does practicing empathy enhance our ability to understand and connect with others on a deeper level in relationship? Again, how does practicing empathy enhance our ability to understand and connect with others on a deeper level in relationships?
To me, empathy allows you to actually see where they're coming from without your personal biases being attached to them. You go down to day level. That's, to keep it real, man. That's really the gap in communication that we have as a whole, man. That's really it. People don't want to go down to the other person's level or raise up to the other person's level to actually figure out where they're coming from. Everybody just want to be right. And being always right is not everything that it is cracked up to be real. So yeah, man, it allows you. I believe empathy allows you to open up that portion of your hearing that actually comprehends and doesn't just look for something just to say or something to rebut. You understand what I'm saying? So that's what I would say.
I'm jumping on board with Chris. I'm wholeheartedly agreeing, because I think sometimes, and I've been one that I know I've done this, where somebody will come to me with a situation. My mind is always fix it, fix it, fix it. I didn't listen long enough to understand that this person didn't want me to fix it. They just wanted me to listen. I just needed to shut my mouth long enough to hear their heart. And then I was like, oh man, I understand. I can feel where they are in this, not where I think they should be, but where they are. And now we can cater the conversation around how they would like it to go, not how I just want to think I need to navigate it.
I mean, you guys own it. I mean, just, when you practice an empathy, you just, in a sense, you're just putting yourself in that person's position. You're trying to um look at it from their perspective, or from their point of view, or from whatever they may be going on in their life. You know what I'm saying? So I think that when you do that, it and you are open-minded at the same time, I think it allows you to, in a sense, have a conversation back and forth in your head. So when you're looking at it from this point of view, and now you're looking at it from this point of view, it's like you can have a conversation, and you can kind of cross check each one of those references. That's kind of how I look at it. You know what I'm saying, for me. And then, with that conversation that I'm having different point of views, and I'm seeing things, like I said, from a different point of view. So that allows me to maybe sometimes maybe be willing to reach a helping hand, or to be there for my brother, or to be there for my sister, not as necessarily about um sympathy for them, but just empathy. And because I understand it, because I understand that I could be in your same situation. And if I was in your situation, I would want somebody to do that for me. You know what I mean? So I just think it just helps on so many different levels. It just helps, like, I don't know. I can't explain no
All
more
right, you're
without
good. You're good.
start babbling.
You're good. 'Cause I got a follow-on question, but I'm gonna go after Gaddy. Go ahead.
I guess for me, I look at as empathy as the show of the level of relationship I have, right? It's the evidence that that we have relationship. Because I don't know, maybe it's just me. I don't want to sound cold, but I feel like if we're connected, if you're my brother, if we close like that, but the byproduct of that is my ability to feel when you feel, to mourn when you mourn, to hurt when you hurt. But even in doing that, I think the nature of empathy will draw us closer in our relationship. And so for me, I just say do it. Build your relationships, tighten them up, get to know each other, talk with each other. And in that, I think we start growing empathy for people that we care about the most. Yeah.
So
I could be
I
wrong.
think. Oh,
let me ask this, because I'm hearing a lot here. And pretty much what I'm hearing you guys say is to understand. Some say I can, I think Gaddy, you said I can mourn when you mourn, something of that nature. So I'm hearing mourn when you mourn on one side, then I hear understand on the other. Like, which is it? Am I supposed to mourn when you mourn? Is that really empathy, or am I just seeking to understand so I can, you know, somewhat relate? I just want to know because I don't want anybody to be confused based upon the concept of empathy. So which is it? And that's for everybody. It doesn't matter who.
I think first you seek to understand. And then once you seek to understand, then if there's a follow-on action, then you have the information to decide if I'm going to do this or if I'm going to do that. So I think um
Give me an example of a follow-on action, if you don't mind.
um Roland, no, I'm using Twami this time. All right, so Twami is so Twami hit me up and he $200 short, right? And he's like, "Hey man, this going on in my life, brother." And I'm just like, all right. So I can have some empathy for him, right? I can put myself in this situation. I'm like, all right, man, I remember being his age. I remember
Mhm.
having a wife and kids, right? And I remember being $200 short on my rent before, right? So now, now the follow-on action is giving him the money or deciding not to give him the money. So that would be the follow-on action once I've, you
So
know,
does that make it empathy, that follow-on action?
That provides a solution to the problem.
Okay.
I
yeah,
believe the
provides-
purpose behind the follow action.
But
I
the
don't
reason why I would say the empathy side of it was him actually going back and to think about where he was when he was in that position and saying, if first of all, this dude trusts me enough to call me with this. Second of all, if I was his age and I had somebody like that, if I wish I had somebody I could call to loan me something so I can progress and then pay him back. You understand what I'm saying? So
Mhm.
the giving or the solving of the problem, that's after he figured out, he sat and thought about where he was coming from. I think the empathy part of it is understanding where they're coming from. So that way they can, you know what I'm saying? You can either help him work it out or you can provide a solution and then get blessed on the back end.
I
But
think
I
with
don't think I have to provide the solution to show empathy either.
Right. That's why I said the providing the solution was that comes after you show the empathy because you have to understand where they're coming from to even think of a solution in the first place.
Yeah.
I think just having the desire to help, you're showing empathy, but you actually saying, man, I'm gonna lower myself to actually join in his plight with him. Because I'm not just talking, I'm joining in it with you because I don't want to see you struggling. I don't want to see this struggle continue. And having a relationship, especially with brothers I know, it takes a lot for a man to lower himself to say, bro, I need some help. So when a brother that you know says, I need some help, now I shut up, I listen, and I say, man, how can I help this brother? And if I don't have it, I got four brothers right here that I can say, hey, we need to help this brother. No, oh, when I'm gonna get it back or anything like that. The objective is help this brother because helping this brother brings him up, brings his family up. So now it's not because if we're looking at this from a community level, now it uplifts the family and community, and now he can still hold his head high and know that I can depend on my circle.
So I agree with what you're saying. I'm agreeing with you too. I don't want to skip past that. And Chris, I definitely agree with you. But it's a very, very slippery slope. And here's why. Because and Unc, I'm gonna use you since you use Gaddy. We're gonna just take turns using each other today, right?
I
So
like it.
if Unc called me and like you said, it takes a lot for a person to humble themselves and say, hey man, I need some help. Well, you don't necessarily know if he is okay with me turning around and saying, hey, Roland, Gaddy, Chris, reached out to me on this level, but I can't do it. We need to pool our resources together. You see what I'm saying? So it's a very slippery slope, very slippery slope. So we got to be careful with that.
It
And
is.
Yeah, you gotta know your circle. You
Right.
really gotta know your circle.
And that's where I was going. Like, I know that if I were to go to any of y'all, it wouldn't go past any of y'all. You understand what I'm saying? It would be, this is us. I'm not going to hold it over your head like a storm cloud. I'm not going to do any of those things. You asked me for this. You came to me. You came to talk to me. I'm willing to help you. Here's the help. Give it to me whenever you can, or we can set something up. That's the divide. We
And-
are afraid to do that because we are afraid of A, being looked at like a leech, and two, it being held over our head. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, remember when I did this for you? Like,
Yeah.
if that's really what you're doing it for, you're not really showing empathy. You are conducting a business transaction.
And so I think everything that just got said brings me to answer the original question Coach asked. So, you know, I think it's a but and type answer, right? Is it understanding or is it mourning when you mourn, right? Because reason why I say a but and is because the relationship part plays a factor. I remember a guy one time was just like, man, my pops just passed, and I'm trying to, you know, feel his pain and, you know, and going through all this. He's like, and I'm going so deep. He's like, hold on, bro. We ain't even had a relationship like that. I'm just surprised
That's
he died. And I didn't understand where he was coming from. You know, I didn't understand the level of where this was. Is he
Right.
hurting? Is he crying? Is he so, you know, so that relationship part, that knowing the person plays a major factor. So I believe, you know, once I know you, then I know if it's mourn when you mourn, or is it understanding what you need in this time.
And that works both ways. I want to make sure I'm saying it. It's not just me wanting to get in there and fix it with you because we have a relationship. It's knowing when to step back and let you learn the lesson that you need to learn in that particular moment. I'm not necessarily talking about something as significant as a death in the family. It is also me having that relationship and understand that some things we got to go through on our own. Some things we got to do on our own. And I think a lot of times what people tend to do is we have this fix it mode so many times, fixed in our head, that if a person shares that, our initial thought is, how can I help? But in every situation, helping is just conversating. Helping is brainstorming, not necessarily you providing the answer for them as well. So I think we have to understand the people that we're dealing with. We need to understand what empathy is, which I think a lot of times, kind of like what we talked about a few weeks ago with gaslighting, right? I think a lot of times we conflate empathy with sympathy, and what we want the other person to do is to feel what I'm going. I don't want you to feel what I'm going through. That's kind of like why I am who I am. If I'm sharing it with you, I'm sharing it with you from a perspective of making you aware of it. I don't want you to get in the sinking boat with me, because when you get in the sinking boat with me, now we're both going down. I'm over here crying, you over here crying. We ain't doing nobody no good. So I think a lot of times we go a little bit too far with the concept of empathy, and we turn empathy into sympathy and think it's empathy. And then we get mad at other people when they don't display empathy the way that we believe that they should be displaying empathy. Sometimes we got to take responsibility of where we are and ask ourselves, what am I supposed to be learning right now? And if I take charge of myself and do that, then the conversation that I have with my brothers might be different. I don't go to you guys like, woe is me. Like, look, man, I'm dealing with something right now, man. I need to talk to you guys about it. Right. And in talking with you guys about it, I may just ask, like, how do you deal with that? How did you guys handle it? Or if you were me, how would you handle it? You see what I'm saying? So now I've taken it and I've turned it into a mastermind conversation to where I got 5 different brains all focused on the same problem. And here's the reality of the truth. Your brain, believe it or not, is a problem solving mechanism. That's why I keep trying to tell you to stop watching CNN. Every time y'all watch the news, your brain is trying to fix the problem that the news keeps showing you. That is stress. I'm sorry, Chris, you're about to say something, bro.
No, I was gonna piggyback off of something you said. Sometimes empathy could be you shutting up and listening. A lot of people don't really take too kindly to getting unsolicited advice from people. especially when that unsolicited advice comes from someone who has little to no experience about what the person is sharing. They just feel like they have a thought and they need to solve the problem. Sometimes empathy could be, shut up, I need to get this off of my chest, and then we can go from there. If I ask you, then that's different. Or if you say, can I ask you something, like Coach has a habit of doing, then that's different. That's opening up the gates so that way I could get some, like I can, you know what I'm saying? I can, we can now have that conversation. But a lot of people automatically think that they know what's best for you in the movie they got in their head.
Absolutely.
Sometimes shutting up is the best solution.
Absolutely. Does empathy deal with feelings or our ability to understand what that other person is going through? Yeah, I kind of think we just talked about that. So it does deal with feelings. It's our ability to understand what they're feeling. I don't have to share in it. I don't even have to have the experience. I just need to shut up the noise that's going on in my head so I can hear them authentically. I think that's one of the main reasons why we spent a lot of time talking about communication prior to, right? Because a lot of times we have self-talk while the other person is talking. Empathy means that I need to remove any opinion that what's going on in that person's life when they're talking to me, listen exactly to what they're saying, understand how they're feeling in relation to it, and then I can respond compassionately, like Miss Uncle Junior is saying over there. I can respond compassionately, but in my response, I also need to hold the space for them to be able to think. And I think a lot of times what people think empathy is that once I share it with you, I can just give up and just wait because you're going to give me what I need in that moment. That creates dependency, and that's not good. So we got to be careful with that. So great question, and thank you for that. Let me see. Am I missing the thing? Am I overlooking the thing? Okay. Additionally, there is more than one type of empathy that is often overlooked. Absolutely, absolutely. And we got to be, and I think that's. I don't want to. I don't want to speak wrong in either direction. I think it's just initially we just need to understand what empathy is, right? And then once we understand what empathy is, then we can start looking at, like, how do I employ it? Like, how do I, how can I show up in this moment for this person, or how can I show up in this moment in this person, for this person? But just understanding empathy initially, I think that's the biggest hurdle that we all need to do. But I agree with you 100%. There is more than one type. Listen, wherever you are, I don't care where you are, what you're going through, or what platform you're on, make sure that you hit the like button. Again, share it, because this is one of those very touching conversations as we start to dive deeper into it. You know what? Let's go there. Go to the next question. There you go. Can you guys share practical strategies for developing empathy and active listening skills to better understand the perspective and emotions of those we care about, besides shut up?
I was gonna say
know-
it first
I
before
know,
Chris
man,
got
I
it
know.
out.
But I mean, let's build a foundation. Shut up. Shut up and listen. And listen to comprehend and understand where they're coming from, and not just to have some type of rebuttal.
Mhm.
Go where they are. What's going on? Or if they bring themselves up to you and say, I need an ear, just be an ear. And if the conversation opens up to where you and the person that you're talking to can put your heads together and build a solution, then let it develop from there. But don't just shut up.
I think after you shut up, right? Since he started with shut up, because that's definitely the start. It's not a foundation. I'm sorry.
Yes, it
But
is. It is a foundation. Shut up. Because when you shut up, you open the floor up so the other person can talk. Shut up.
So open the
Yeah.
floor so Gary can talk real quick.
Hey, perfect segue. But after we shut, I think for me, because I think a lot of us, especially like if you're preacher, counselor, or whatever, you tend to want to respond. And so for me, what I found a good exercise to help me know whether or not a response is really warranted, or if this person just need to get off their chest, is after they express what they're going through. Sometimes I ask a question like, "So what's the plan?" Or what you gonna do? What we gonna do next? You know what I mean? And just in case you need my help, so what we gonna do? What's the plan? Because then they'll be like, yeah, I'd already got this laid out, blah, blah, blah. All right, you don't need my help. You venting. And I let them continue. Like, man, I was hoping you could help me figure out. I figured since okay, you are soliciting my assistance. All right. So I think another part of that is asking the right questions.
I think when practical strategies would be to take your feelings out of it. I think because when someone else is talking, it's not about you. It's not about your past. You can't go off of have any triggers in this moment because they're trying to communicate something that is going on with them. So when I say if something's going on now, my strategy to not bring my feelings into it, say someone had some Gaddy, since we talking about everybody, he comes and say, "Hey, I had this problem with this dude." I can't get in my feelings and say, "Okay, I'm going in the safe and we gonna ride." No, I gotta listen and allow him to communicate what's going on so that he can see, like, okay, sometimes if you let people talk, they'll start to work through their own problems. And so I let him talk and communicate. And I'm not saying a word. I'm just nodding and agreeing and actively listening and speaking when I need to, not just over talking or injecting thought so that it turns his thought into where I want him to go. I want him to get it all out so that he can see where he actually needs to go versus where he wants it to go in an emotional setting.
I kind of wrote two things down. Because I thought about a story. So in this story, I'm gonna try to make it quick. So in this story, we was in Korea, and there was this young soldier, and this soldier came up and was like, "Hey, my grandfather died." I'm like, "Okay." So then, not too long after that, so I think the soldier. I don't know if they went home or whatever. Like this matter went home, and then not too long ago, it was like my grandfather died, and it seemed like it kept happening. Like the person's grandfather got died, and I was like, when people keep telling you their grandfather died, you in the military, you like, look, how many grandfathers you got? So it was really hard for me to express certain types of empathy for the situation, but it was because I was being judgmental, and it was because I didn't realize that in this soldier's culture that they call all of the older people grandfathers or grandmothers. So I think that sometimes we can be judgmental about certain things, which can cause us to not show or develop a certain amount of empathy. And I think to go along with that was body language. You know what I mean? When you're talking to somebody and they're like, you know, my son, my so and so died. My grandfather died, and I was like, man, this person over here lying again. You know what I mean? And he was like, man, you twisting up your mouth and be like, yeah, whatever. You know what I'm saying? So I just think that sometimes, man, I think when you judgmental and and body language, those I kind of think about both of those kind of came out in that, when I was thinking about that story. So what you got, Chris?
Everything that you all said stemmed from shutting up in the beginning.
True, but that's not where I wanted you to go. I kind of gave you an alley oop, man. I was
I
waiting on you to
told you
say
I was.
ego.
But see, shutting up involves getting your ego
True.
out the way.
Absolutely.
Shut up and listen. And like Tawame said, what's the plan? Or like you always say, what do you think about what's going on? You understand what I'm saying? Where do you want to go with this? Now that you done got it all off your chest. Now the gears are turning, the wheels are turning. Now I can think straight because I got it all out of my system. Shut up.
And I think a lot of times when it comes down to it, that's the true mark of relationship, right? Am I providing what you need in that particular situation, or am I providing what you want? Because a lot of times what you want is not what you need. And here's the reality of the truth: when we're stuck in our situation and we're hyper emotional, we can't even think about what we need. That's what relationship does for you. It actually focuses, it listens authentically to what you are. It gets down to the root cause of the situation, and then it helps you to analyze what you need. So listening empathetically allows you to calm down, bring it back down, zero bubble, bring it back down a little bit. Now that you brought it back down a little bit, you can think, how did we get here? Okay. What are some of the things that we need to do to get out? What's the first thing you need to do? Right. So in that particular scenario, I love it. I think, Ron, did I cut you off? I'm sorry. Okay. I think for the most part, when it comes down to strategies, I think the best strategy that anybody can do is always self-assess themselves. How did I show up for Unc in his situation? How did I show up for Gaddy? How did I show up for Chris? Right? Because it'll happen again. Not necessarily from them. It may happen from somebody else, but you'll get the opportunity to show up again. Self-assess yourself, analyze what could you have done differently, what could you have done better. I think that is the best strategy that anybody can do. And to Adrian, your question, that's the answer, right? Yes, we can develop empathy as an adult, but it is one of the hardest things there is to develop. But it causes you to do some deep self-reflection, and in the words of my brother Chris, move your ego all the way out the way. Because a lot of times you're like, man, I ain't doing that. I don't want to do all that. Like, nobody did that for me. Well, yeah, I got that. But just because no one did it for you, it does not mean that you don't have the opportunity to do it for somebody else.
And that could be why you are the way that you are now. Shut up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that too. Make sure you practice shutting up. Practicing the art of shutting up is a good thing to do. So it's good. All right. Moving on. Vulnerability as a strength. Now, just to kind of shed light on it, this was mine from the beginning. When you guys answered the question in the beginning, and I seen, I think Michelle Ray, she gave an answer as well, and her answer was an awesome answer. I can't find it again. Humility. So she mentioned humility. I also think somebody else gave an answer as well. Adrian gave trust and transparency. Mine is vulnerability itself. Mine was vulnerability itself. So I want to kind of dive into these for the last couple of minutes we have. How can embracing vulnerability enhance the quality and depth of our relationships, both personally and professionally? In fact, what is vulnerability first? Let's do that. What is vulnerability?
I see what Chris doing.
Oh yeah, I'm looking it up, so that way I know exactly what I'm talking about. And from what I see, it means being susceptible to physical or emotional attack or harm.
You put yourself out there to where, and that's why when I say, if I have a friend or if I have a relationship with someone and they have a problem, now I make myself vulnerable where I'm exposed. That's what it is. Is you're exposed. You're exposed to the pain. You're exposed to the hurt. You're exposed to the damage that can come from this. And you put yourself in that position to allow them to see that you're in it with them and you're not just talking about it. So it tends to, like, man, it's like when in basic training or in situations where when I played on teams, when y'all went through tour-a-days in the summer, it helped you grow as a team to where when times got tough, hey, I know I can count on him, because when we was throwing up out our nose, he still was there. He handed me water. You know how it is in the summer when you doing tour-a-days and running hills and stuff. And that type of bond, or that type of I guess bonding exercises actually helps make relationships more conducive to struggle.
On the tally to what Roland said, because I agree 100%. I'm going to say vulnerability is. I was going to say trust actually. Uh, Putting yourself out, you trusting the situation or the person enough to put yourself out there. But I would say I wouldn't use the word trust. I would say the removal of fear uh, attached to what Roland is saying, because I think what keeps us from opening up and being vulnerable is the fear of someone using it against us. Talking about the asking for help, if when finances ain't looking right, I'm afraid of being looked at as a man who's not taking care of business. I'm afraid of being looked at as the leech. I'm afraid. I'm afraid. I don't want to be looked at less than. And that's not. I'm gonna leave that alone. But so I think it's the removing fear from the relationship.
Gotcha. Uncle, what you got?
Nothing. I'm nothing at all.
You moved up on the microphone like you was ready to attack. So I just wanted to make sure.
No, I was listening to the trust piece. I think that when you're vulnerable, I think that it can cause trust. But I was trying to think in my head is, if I'm being vulnerable, do I already have the trust? Like if I do something vulnerable, like I put myself out there and I'm just like, man, darn it, man. I be coming on here talking about I got all this money, but then I'm over here and asking coach, like, man, let me get $100. Right. So
I think it's
I
not
don't
caring
know.
about.
I'm trying to figure out, like, if I'm being vulnerable to him, does that mean that I already have the trust? And if I already have the trust, am I still being vulnerable? And I don't know if I don't want to spin us off into a whole different conversation or nothing, but that's just what I was kind of thinking about.
No, you're fine. I want to kind of bring us back because there's some other stuff I want to get to. Me personally, if I were to tie the word trust in with vulnerability, it has absolutely nothing to do with another person. It's because I trust in a higher power more so than I trust in the other person, right? So that's why vulnerability can become a part of my character. So that's what kind of makes relationship more easily acceptable or present. But by that same token, vulnerability, I'm going back with Chris's definition when he says opening yourself up for, what'd you say, Chris? Open yourself up for attack or harm.
Yep.
Okay. So it's almost like everybody, you guys are old school, Star Trek, Star Wars, whatever the case may be. It's kind of like when we was deployed, one of the captains came up and started yelling at the operations officer. And he said, whoa, shields down, man, shields down. Right. So it's taking your shields down, putting your defense mechanism down, not being so guarded, right? Being open now, right? Now what happens afterwards is vulnerability. So that's the thing I want to get at when I say that. Uncle, you still like you about to attack the mic, man. So I wanted to. No, you get.
I'm good.
No, you get. So I wanted to kind of unpack that first before we get into this first question. How can embracing vulnerability enhance the quality, and that's the key, and depth, second key, of our relationship, both personally and professionally?
When I know you in it with me, and you've taken measures to where you sacrificed, because it has to be a sacrifice for you to be vulnerable, to put yourself out there on my behalf. So now my trust level in you and how you feel about me and our relationship grows. And that can only enhance it, because now it's like, man, I know he got my back. I know he was there for me. So now I'm confident that if all else fails and the shenanigan hit the fan, I got one person with me. That was the word of the day.
Jesus H.
Yeah.
I'll say that embracing vulnerability, especially as men, it would enhance the quality and depth of our relationships man to man, because it would kind of show the other person how to do it. Like a lot of people don't know how to be vulnerable because they ain't never had no examples on how to do it, or how to do it and still be manly at the same time. Like a lot of people, a lot of us don't know how to do that. So if we got an example and you showing us how to do it the right way and you ain't got your ego involved in it, hey, and it's working and it's actually working out for you, let me see if I can find my own version of this so that way I can maybe do this with somebody else. A lot of us don't know what it looked like.
I like that. Let's see what you did there.
I think so. I'm gonna speak from the person as if, you know, I see you being vulnerable in this with me. The quality part for me is like, if I'm looking at it from the aspect of you're all in to whatever the end goal is, the mission, right? If I'm looking at it from that aspect, like, hey, this is what I'm trying to do, and I bring it to you, you like, bet, let's go. What we gotta do? You know, you trying to build this business. Can I help you? Let me put something down. Now you're financially vulnerable in this with me. So I know you're all in. The quality of that relationship, it goes up. Because now I know we can grind. I know I got somebody I can bounce ideas off. I got somebody I can call and say, hey, I'm hitting these roadblocks. Think this with me, because you're in there. You've opened yourself up to the goal with me. You're not just out here watching me do it. But the depthness is when I realize that you're not doing it just for the end goal of starting this business, but you're in it because of me, because of our friendship, our relationship, our brotherhood, cause you to open yourself up and make yourself vulnerable in whatever way that is to the plan, because you want to see me win. Now it's more than just I have a business partner to talk to. It's I got a friend I know, like Roland said earlier, that got my back. I know when push come to shove, there's somebody I know that's gonna get in the deep with me, gonna get in the hole with me and fight with me. You're not just gonna watch me go and say, man, I cheered you on when you had nothing. But instead he's saying, man, I was with you from the beginning, and look where we at now. You know, so that's how I look at it when you looking at the two words, depth and quality.
So let me ask this. I'm curious for everybody. Is it possible that you can be vulnerable and the other person don't believe that you're being vulnerable? Their perception of your vulnerability does not equate to their understanding of vulnerability.
Yes, because like I said, a lot of us don't know what it looks like. We've never seen it before. So it's going to look foreign to us because it's new, and it's going to be scary because it's new. We don't know what this looked like. We don't know what it's, and this is me speaking as a man. We don't know we don't actually, a lot of us don't know what it's like to actually be able to just figuratively speaking, let our hair down. You understand what I'm saying? A lot of us don't know how to do that. We're always looking for a constant fight. So it's difficult to be vulnerable when you are always in a fighting stance or in a fighting phase. It's difficult. And when I say we, I'm speaking with me included on a general scale. Like a lot of us don't know what it looked like. So yeah, it could be that.
I will add to what you're saying because I agree. I wouldn't say holistically we're always looking for a constant fight. I wouldn't say that we're always looking for a constant fight, but what I will say is if I'm constantly fighting for you, fighting with you, or fighting you to any degree whatsoever, now I'm always looking for a constant fight. That becomes problematic within itself. So you should not, especially if there's a lot of tension here, you shouldn't expect me to be vulnerable because I have to be on guard. So I like that response. What about everybody else?
I agree. I think it definitely is possible. Some people don't know and that really boils down to whatever examples we get. Some people really just don't know what it looks like. I think a lot of us, if you would have asked me at 21, I wouldn't have known really what it looks like because I was so used to bad behavior. And even at a young age, at my late teenage, there were people who have exposed themselves to being hurt to help me, but I didn't know what it looked like when it showed up. And I even say to this day, I think I take them for granted in a sense because I didn't know, and I just I've gotten used to not showing my appreciation to them, and that's just me being real at this moment. Like, man, now I got to call these jokers and apologize for 20 years of being a terrible person, but really, something that's just what it all boils down to.
Okay.
Some of us are used to bad behavior.
What you guys got?
Chris said something that stuck out to me because he said, I don't know exact word, but it was about handling it like a man. I think as a 50-year-old, my expectations of what a man would normally be, how my grandfather was a hard worker and doing these things. But you learn as you grow and you see the people. I can't call somebody less of a man because they don't move how I expect them to. And that's how we're groomed. Oh, he moving around. We call them sissies. We call them this. We call them names because they don't do like the hard men of old did. So when you have a young boy crying, you say, you can't do that. You can't cry. You label him certain things. And so that makes them not want to communicate and not want to be vulnerable because in that state, you bashed them and you didn't get down to that level. So you weren't empathetic when, if you were just to, as Chris said, shut up, get out your ego and listen and lower yourself to them. Now, I'm not looking at you as not being manly enough to handle things or not being manly because you're not handling your bills, because that's all in judgment. What I do is I try to stand not in judgment, but look at the overall person. And if you are a male, I don't degrade you to anything less than that because of your actions. I just say you may not be mature enough, and I stay away from that because I don't do a lot of things. I do a lot of things that most men of old wouldn't consider manly because I get my feet done, I get my nails done, and then they like, no, you supposed to have hard nails and calluses, and I'm like, that ain't gonna happen, bro. But that's the generation that raised me. And that's one of those things where we got to stop because people try to be vulnerable and they pull back when they see you're too egocentric and in your machismo, and they steer away from you.
Yeah, I think that you can be vulnerable and people not see it. Absolutely. And to this question, how can embracing vulnerability enhance the quality and depth of our relationships, both personally and professionally? I think that, to kind of pick, from different people's talking points, I think, yes, it helps with the connection. And then I think it, back to the word trust again. If we use that example about, me talking a bunch of smack and then having to ask coach to borrow $200, you know what I mean? And then like what Chris was talking about and not tell everybody, you know what I mean? Like if I borrowed $200 from coach and he didn't go around like, man, Garfield, he talking all that smack, but then he over here telling Roland behind closed door that that I borrowed $200 from him. So, I think that what you can do is when you embrace, if I am vulnerable and I do ask coach for $200 and he does it for me, he doesn't spread all my business. I think that helps with our connection, at least on my part as the receiver. And I think it also helps me, knowing that he didn't tell everybody my business. I think that helps with the overall trust in our relationship.
I don't know, man. I'm starting to feel some type of way. I think everybody think I'm joking. Go ahead, Gary.
All right, coaches out here putting our business. Nah,
no, right?
No. So I'm trying to be careful. I'm trying to make sure I'm not about to derail. But when it comes to the trust part, I agree that is definitely important. But I don't think trust is always necessary for vulnerability, because I think sometimes we become vulnerable by despair, right? I'm deaf. It's either this $200 or I lose everything. And so at that point, whether you tell everybody or not, is you gonna give me this $200 because I need it. Like, so I think in that as because there's moments we have to be vulnerable because we have no other choice. And so I think that's a part. I think is robbery to miss that point because I've, maybe I'm just speaking for me, but I've been there. You know what I mean? I remember being vulnerable. I remember my mama being so vulnerable because she couldn't feed us. We on the train singing gospel songs so the people give us some money on the train so we can go home and find some food to eat. You know what I mean? And it wasn't because she trusted people on the train. It's just that, hey, I don't really care whether you go tell somebody or not, but my kids got to eat. And so there's that when we talk about vulnerability too.
Yeah, I definitely I get that part too. Definitely.
Yeah, let's kind of push forward because I kind of want to get one more question in. I'm sorry, Chris, what you got?
No, I was going to say that either way, I would say in the situations like that, both parties are vulnerable because one party is being vulnerable and letting you know what's going on in their head, and the other party is being vulnerable by opening themselves up to maybe help you with that solution. Both of y'all are putting yourselves in harm's way.
Yeah, absolutely.
So you're always vulnerable when you're in situations like that.
Yeah. Let's try to find a solution to this because again, this is my opinion. I believe this is the secret sauce to boosting relationship value. So, what practices or mindset shifts can individuals adopt to become more comfortable with being vulnerable in their interactions with others?
Being vulnerable is not synonymous with being a punk. Get that out of your brain. You are not a punk because you are in a vulnerable position. You are not a punk if you ask somebody for help. You are not a punk if you release some of these emotions to another guy that you trust. You are not a punk. So how about shifting that mindset and quit allowing these people with social media talking points to tell you that you a man or you not a man based off of the stuff that come out of your mouth? How about dealing in the, you know what? I'm sorry.
I will admit that that's one of my biggest pet peeves when you hear non-male entities saying a real man will, a real man want, or you hear a man tell what a real woman will. You don't know. You have no idea. So that is one of my pet peeves.
I was ready for you, Chris. You can't even see it in my light.
It says ego.
Yeah.
We have been ego deprived, bro. That's all I'm saying.
Right. But wait for it. Nah, but I'm right there. I think one of the things that we can adapt is we got to get out of our ego, so that we can become better community members, right? Not everybody I'm gonna call friend. I get that. Not everybody I'm gonna call brother, sister. I get that. But I got to get out of my ego enough that I can be a good community members to those who are in my community. Period. Right. I can't be on my horse. Well, they need to get a better job. Well, they should have got a certification. I like when you say in the military, we be like, man, you ain't out here doing this with us. Well, I pick my MOS, but that don't work in community. I'm sorry you picked to be a 13 Fox and now you got to sit out there in the field all the time. My bad. I'm sorry. I'm bringing it back. And I'm sitting in the A-lock with the AC on. But that don't work in community. I gotta move that ego out the way so we can make it happen. That's to me. So.
He taking a drink, so I guess I'll say plan for situations to come up. Issues come up in relationships. You don't throw the relationship up away simply because y'all had some issues. You may have an argument, you may have a tiff, but you don't, just because you had a spat don't mean you throw the issue, the relationship away. So plan for it and be willing and ready to work through that so that you can build on top of the relationship. Because if the relationship is valuable to you, you'll go through some things to get where you both trying to go. And you'll realize that, man, we went through this situation and I want to knock you upside your head, but y'all can laugh at it later because that's what relationship is. Relationships ain't all, people have the smoke and mirrors like everything peachy king, but then they get in the car and then they cussing each other out, or it's like you build and you grow. And what you were at 20, you aren't at 30 or 40. You grow on these things. So you are able, your skin has grown callous enough to know that, man, he didn't mean that. Like me, I'm a jokester. So if I'm saying a certain thing, Gaddy's wife had to grow on me because I was me and I was joking with her kid. And she like, oh, he picking with my kid. I ain't picking with him. I'm showing him love. And that's how I show it. So you got to be willing to work through those things and not take isolated incidents and make them the whole of a relationship.
I think one of the practices or mindset shifts the individual can adopt to become more comfortable with being vulnerable in their interaction with other is starting small, right? So just tiptoeing out there, right? We were talking about consistency and knowing coach for a couple of years, like give him a little bit of information. How does he respond? I'll wait a little bit. I'm just using an example. Is he going to come back around? Is Chris going to tell me about what coach talked about? You know what I mean? So it's just like, or even especially in a relationship with close personal relationships, you know what I mean? So I just think just start off with giving a little bit, seeing if it can be trusted, then giving more information, then a little bit more, you know what I mean, until you're comfortable. If you're not comfortable being vulnerable, don't throw the whole sink at somebody. You know what I'm saying? Because they may take that whole sink and do devious things with the information that you just shared with somebody.
I couldn't have said that better myself. I agree. I'm not taking away from nothing anybody else said, but that's exactly what I was going to say. Start off small and build up. You got to realize that vulnerability is a display of courage. It takes courage to be vulnerable. It doesn't make you weak. I think Nick D said it in the chat and Chris said it as well. It doesn't mean you're a weak person, right? But you have to attempt to be vulnerable. And vulnerable is done incrementally over time, step by step by step. And when situations arise, when frustrations and trials and tribulations happen and things of that nature, then that's room for a very honest conversation. And depending upon how the other person handles that conversation, they run the risk of you backing it up. And we're going to try this again. And unfortunately, that's reality. That is the definition of social interaction. I would tell you, I started using this phrase. I ain't going to use it on here because, I don't think the internet like those terms, but I think that's really what it is. From the home, when we are kids, we have and you guys can put the piece together. As a kid, we have a delayed progression when it comes down to social interaction. Just think about another word that describes delayed progression, right? We have a delayed progression when it comes down to social interactions. And so what ends up happening is that you may think at the age of 20 or 21, whatever the case may be, I should understand vulnerability. No, Chris just said it a few seconds ago. A lot of us were totally clueless. We probably didn't get it until our 30s or whatever the case may be, because we was too busy providing and protecting back then. You know what I'm saying? That's what man is, survival of the fittest. Now it's different because we understand manhood as being all encompassing. And so once we open up, and we start coming in, being vulnerable bit by bit. And I think it works both ways. I can't speak for one, but I think it works the exact same way. As we start open up bit by bit, getting stronger with, becoming stronger and more comfortable with being vulnerable with this person. Well, when something happens, then it backs up. And now we have to work this thing out betwixt the two of us, taking that word from Bernie Mac, by the way, betwixt the two of us so that we can get to the point of actually getting back to the space of being vulnerable together. So, perfect description, bro. And that's exactly how I would describe it. Listen, we went a little long, I appreciate you guys for staying with us. Listen, by all means, wherever you are, hit that like button again as we get ready to close out, because this is the time for our bittersweet moment, the final thoughts. And again, we're going to just keep it simple. We're going to go from Chris to Gaddy. We're going to go to Roland. Then we're going to find out with Unc, and then I'm just going to take us home and be done with it. So, Unc, you closing us out tonight, bro. Chris, you starting the show. That being said, we appreciate you guys. Brother, you got the floor.
Okay. I guess my final thought is this. Boosting relationship value to me starts with understanding that the most important person in that relationship is the relationship. I think that's where we should start. That would be a great way to boost relationship value, because you understand that the relationship just is not about you. It's about the relationship. So maybe if we started off with that mindset, we could increase our own individual relationship value and show other people how to increase their relationship value, so that way we can make this a trend. So yeah, that's my final thought.
To be honest, I don't even know where my final thought just came from, man. I wrote some stuff down, but I'm going left. Right. I think there's people out there who think that you're hurting somebody by not being a good friend, by withholding your vulnerability, by withholding your empathy. There's somebody out there that's willing to be a good friend to people who are willing to put themselves out there to be a friend. So only person you're really going to hurt is you, because you're going to lose out on a friend. You're losing out on relationships. You're losing out on community. Unless you're one of those people that just want to be around yourself only, then do that by all means. But don't take up the space in somebody's life to not be what they need, right? Not what they want, but at least not be what they need. If I need a friend, if I need someone to talk to, if I need some, be that, or don't be anything. 'Cause we waste space and we waste energy and we hurt people, So I can go find a friend that's going to be there for me. It just means I won't have that level of friendship with you. And so now we miss out on that level, on the level of relationship that is a blessing to have with one another. That's all I got.
I say be active together. Actually do some things, whether it's a platonic relationship or a romantic relationship. You can't just think that, oh, we just gonna sit on the couch or we just gonna text or call. Sometimes you got to actually do some things and make a routine, like a weekly routine where, hey, on Wednesday morning, this is what we do together. We pray, and then we do this while I walk, and I know you going to work or whatever it is. And have about, you got to give people space. You can't smother a person because you'll push them away, or you'll develop a need for that person to be there every waking moment of your life. You got to have your own space. They got to have their own space. And you may even have other sets of friends, so that when you come back together, everything is fresh. And have a third party to where, when you two may be at odds, or you two may have something to discuss where you're not coming together on it, betwixt. You have somebody with sound mind that think like you guys think, but may be able to have a voice of reason outside of that, that can bring everything together so that you both can see it. Someone that you respect, someone that they respect, and someone that wants the relationship to flourish. So continue to build on relationships and make sure that you do your part first and foremost.
The secret sauce to boosting relationship value. So if I'm thinking about a secret sauce, I'm thinking about usually more than one ingredient. So my final thought, we talked a lot of different things tonight, and when it comes to secret sauce and boosting relationship value, I think, it's a whole bunch of everything we talked about. Not being judgmental. You need respect. Body language is important. Trust. If you're going to be vulnerable, to take baby steps. And I think that, everything, and I think you can help start developing your own secret sauce for your relationship by simply working on yourself. I think when you go out there and you try to become a better version of yourself, I think, and you pay attention and you go to podcasts, or you follow, shows like this. And I think that what you do in return is you will become a better person. And I think that when you become a better person, you just become a better person for relationships. So I'm just going to, that's my final thought, is that work on yourself, become a better version of yourself. And while you're doing that, you're going to overall become a better person for relationships, and you're going to be able to add more value to any relationship that you're in.
Man, I love all those responses. I think it's all about coaches night tonight because we're in sync. That's where I was going. Like, I think it's important that we kind of that we invest in ourselves. Continue to strive to do better. Continue to strive to be better. Reframe your perspective of relationships. I think that's another thing that we need to do in our community because way too many times we're seeing the wrong image of relationship being portrayed on TV, being portrayed on social media, all kind of stuff like that. And it kind of gives you a bad perspective of relationships. And therefore, most people go into relationships fearful with the expectation of something happening. Well, trust me, if you go looking for something to happen, chances are something will happen because that other person is going to prove to you that they're simply human. That's it. So we got to change the way that we view relationships. Not only how we view relationships, but how do we show up in relationships? I think that's important as well. Last but not least, again, get over here, hang out with us, listen to some of the things we talk about. That's what we're striving to do. We're striving to empower, the community, one person at a time, one man at a time, right? One young man at a time. Because I believe wholeheartedly what we're working on, the intent is there, the desire is there, the drive is there. So just come hang out with us, have conversation, have vulnerable conversation with us. 5 men on this panel who do not mind whatsoever sharing the lessons that we learned from the mistakes that we made in our lives. So that being said, listen, share this, with your brothers, share this with your sons, share this with your cousins, your nephews, all of them, because that's what we're doing here. We're building and uplifting our community. So that being said, listen, we appreciate you guys. You guys are awesome. You guys are amazing. You are valued, each and every last one of you. I couldn't get to everything that was said, but trust me, if I seen a question and it was highlighted on my screen, we were talking about it. So that being said, you guys have an awesome rest of your evening. We're not doing anything tomorrow morning, so you guys just chill out and relax for the rest of the weekend. So have an awesome rest of your weekend as well. And we will see you guys next Friday night at 8 p.m. here on the Hearts of Men podcast. So let the best version of yourself be a blessing to someone else.